So even if Harry himself, didn't suffer the same kind of abuse that his mother did, at the same time, his mother's upbringing is necessarily going to affect her ability to relate to him as her son, her ability to be a good model of what a mature parent, should be. The thing that I remember being very disturbing was just some of the kind of stories coming out that William at 14 years old was, kind of the confidant of his mother, that she would, talk to him about her problems and stuff. And I'm not a parent. I hate to Monday morning quarterback parents because it's, what do I know? But that is just this very modern trend that is a little bit disturbing. People trying to treat their kids, more like their bestie, more like their drinking pal or something, than like a child that's looking up to you for guidance and for leadership. So yeah, I made a comment on Twitter that it's funny. So one of the things I've learned as a lawyer is that you can obtain a lot of information about people by saying something very, very neutral. And then, how people read that.
Like a Rorschach test.
Yes, it is like a Rorschach test. It tells you, this is what they think. And so my comment was, I looked back at this famous quotation that Diana gave during an interview where she said, they, meaning the palace, will look after the heir and I will look after the spare. And I just made the comment that Harry has grown into exactly what his mother raised him to be. Some people thought, I'm praising Prince Harry. Some people thought, I'm calling out Fredo Windsor. And the reality, from my perspective, of course, is somewhere a little bit more in the middle. Most people are pretty complex. We're not just a very simple white box, black box type of situation. And saying that Diana, maybe could have done a little better with the parenting of Harry and William is, again, not to say Diana's an awful person or even that she's an awful mother. We all know she loved her children, more than anything else in the world. But that isn't necessarily enough to make sure that you're giving them the tools that they're going to need to be healthy and functional adults. So what really jumps out at me about that statement is the triangulation in it. It is crystal clear. She is pitting Harry from the very beginning of his life against not just his brother William, who's the heir over here. You guys are different people, but also the palace and the institution, because he's, defined by his exclusion from that. So she just set up this, frankly, narcissistic, not using that in the DSM sense, but this narcissistic type of triangulation where, you're going to get special love from mommy, my children are going to be kind of in a different place in my affections because of these other, relationships that they have around them. And that's just such a manipulative and damaging approach that, to me, it really does say a lot. I feel that that statement in and of itself just kind of shows how, from the beginning, Diana had set him up to be alienated and vengeful and essentially kind of just like her in her attitudes towards the rest of the royal family.
Right. And I think, that there's a lot of, we often, if we're not careful, we marry our parents. Well, if our parents are good people, then that's not a problem, right? we often marry our parents. And I do think that there are a lot of correlations that we can draw, if we had time, between Meghan Markle and Princess Diana. And I think that one of the unfortunate negative ones, well, two of them, one is opportunism. And people might say, Diana was opportunistic. Yes, she was. From the time that she was young, she was saying she wanted to be the Princess of Wales. And I know we all say, well, I want to be president or whatever, but she actually was telling people, like, well into her late teens, that she was saving herself. She was not going to have sex because she needed to keep herself tidy for the Prince of Wales. that sounds very intentional to me. And then, like I said, once her grandmother gave her an in and she and Charles started dating her, she basically put on an entirely fake persona to try to land him. And then once they got married, she expected that she could just drop it and he would be this romantic knight in shining armor from all of these trashy romance novels. That's apparently all she ever read when she was growing up, that gave her all these fake false ideas of things. One more thing I want to say about Diana. The reason that she died is because first of all, her driver was intoxicated. He was speeding, and mainly because she herself had called the paparazzi to get pictures of her during her trip with Dodi Fayed, because she wanted to make her Pakistani lover jealous. And so actually, if you want to know the reason why the paparazzi were trailing Diana through that week-long period that culminated in Paris in that tunnel, is because Diana called them. And this is stuff that people don't want to know or whatever, but it's all out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just part of the press management that it's the same thing that we see Harry and Meghan doing. It's the same thing we see Amber Heard doing. You know, that the press is very pliable, and Diana was pretty masterful at being able to use the press to make sure it was her version of events that's out there in public, that she's the one with the sympathetic eye, and not whoever, you know, her enemy of the moment happens to be. I think a really good example of that is simply this narrative that has stuck about her suggestion that she went into the marriage and that you know, Prince Charles was already in love with Camilla Parker Bowles, and that does not appear to be true. I mean, there's this sort of enduring mythology that, oh, Camilla couldn't, you know, she couldn't marry Prince Charles because, I don't know, she'd gotten around or whatever, you know, she was too just not,
she wasn't intact, as they say in The Crown.
Yeah, not classy enough or whatever. But no, she was already married. Okay, she was hot for Andrew Parker Bowles, just like every other woman of her generation, including
inexplicably. Oh, okay,
he must be very charismatic. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. Well, you know, I mean, that's the thing, that like, that's, you know, looks only matter so much, especially I think to women, because once that sort of alpha male charisma kicks in, and it's like, wow.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what you look like.
You hear that, guys?
But so, yeah, I mean, they didn't get married because Camilla wasn't interested in marrying him. And at that point in time,
Charles,
it's clear that Charles was interested in settling down either.
Right.
He was leaving the country for an extended length of time. He comes back. Camilla, you know, she landed.
And by the way, I just want to say, if you've seen The Crown, that's inaccurate. As far as we know, he was not sent off to Naval Academy or whatever so that he could be taken away from Camilla. It was apparently her choice and his choice that the relationship ceased when it did. I'm sure there was some sense of pressure or whatever, like marrying an appropriate woman, but that it's just The Crown is there's a lot of BS in there.
Sure. So basically, yes, they remained friends for decades before they renewed their relationship. But so that story that Diana was kind of able to get people to think because of the compliant press.
There were three of us in this marriage. Well, not initially.
is largely untrue. And the other thing that doesn't get said is that Diana was the first one to be unfaithful. She's admitted to her affair with Barry Manicky, and that occurred long before, you know, there's any indication of a renewed relationship between Charles and Camilla. So it really does, you know, from the outside, granted that you can never know what's going on in the inside of a marriage, from the outside, it looks like, Charles was trying to make a go of it for quite some time, until things.
He really did try.
Just
people don't want to
intolerable.
accept that. Yeah, people don't want to accept that, but he really did try. And I'll continue to say this, that marriage broke down because of problems on both sides, failures on both sides, and then also the pressure of, you know, the institution that they're in. But there are a lot of people under a lot of pressure. There are couples who break up because they can't pay the bills. You know, there's all kinds of problems.
Sure. No, 100%.
And I just want to be clear too. We don't begrudge Harry leaving the royal family or coming to America or getting involved in business ventures or whatever, right? I think that's do whatever you want to do. No one says you have to stay in that institution. what I don't like is the seemingly sort of self-pitying, immature, short-sighted wallowing in victimization, and also the lies and misrepresentations that he and Meghan have been putting out there about the royal family, including in that horrible Oprah interview.
Yeah. I mean, the Oprah interview was really no bueno on so many levels. And I could probably, look past what was it, 17 lies that Pierce Morgan counted or something like that. I don't know. I mean, obviously a lot of inaccuracy.
And the race baiting, making them sound like a bunch of racists,
Yeah. And, granted, I am the type of person, I will give people a lot of leeway for perspective. I understand. I mean, I've seen, what a massive discrepancy there can be between what people actually perceive and sincerely believe and what objective reality, will prove to be the case. So I don't necessarily hold that against them. What I do hold against them on that is the timing of it. Because that to me is where Harry, that's where the core of Harry's real tragic turn is here, is his treatment of his grandparents on their deathbeds. Now, I'm somebody who had the outstanding good fortune of being able to hold my own grandfather's hand while he passed away in his home. I got to be part of that experience with him. It is and will always be one of the most important moments of my life. So I have a real sense of just how significant it is to see your generations passing and to be a part of that and to participate in that. And so for Harry to alienate himself from not just that experience, that opportunity to share something, frankly, it's very special. It's very important, very life-changing. But also then when they're the monarchs, they're some of the wisest, most important people, they've lived lives that nobody else has lived on the planet. There is so much to learn from them, so much to gain from them. And the fact that he squandered that and missed out on it, to me, that speaks to the type of bad judgment that it's going to be hard for me to get past that, because it just kind of goes to character. Like, I think that you understand the importance of getting the time with your elders while you have it, or you don't. And Harry, for whatever reason, didn't get it. And that's a massive black strike for me.
That's an interesting perspective, and one that I actually hadn't thought about. I did think that it must be sad for him, having now alienated himself from his family, how it must feel very weird to go back and to be around your friends and your family and all that, but now you're like you've removed yourself from it. Like there's this invisible wall. It's got to be, I wonder if he had some sadness about that, because the grass is always greener on the other side.
Sure.
And before he moved to America, before he dropped all of that, I'm sure that it seemed like once he got away from England and the royal family, then his problems would be over. And I just wonder if it's starting to sink in that, things hanging out with Meghan in America and being alienated from my birthright and everything I grew up with and all my friends and family, doesn't feel as great as I thought it did. I don't know. How do you think how
could it not? It's hard to cut ties with your family when your family, is a bunch of violent, drug addicted, abusive monsters. Okay. It's still when it's amazing the variety of environments that people can accept as normal, because that's what they were born into. That's what they expect. I feel a lot for Diana as well, for being born into this, aristocratic type of system where it is your expectation that you should be aspiring to marry the Prince of Wales. Sure. Like there is no higher objective. Diana, obviously a very complicated person, but was an extremely high achiever. I mean, a very highly diligent type of person. And so you give her that kind of a goal. Yeah, she's going to knock that out of the park. And
very good with people, very
absolutely
intuitive. And it sounds like good at, and I don't mean this as a negative, but good at manipulating people. I don't mean that. I mean, I just mean good at good at handling people when she's in public, at least. It sounds like in private, that was a whole other story. And there was a lot of emotional instability and frankly, just, yeah, outrageous behavior. But I'm curious, do you think that Harry is happy with Meghan? No way of knowing, but
yeah. I mean, given that there's no way of knowing, I don't think Harry is happy, period. I don't know to what extent Meghan is a trigger for that or a balm for that. I don't think a happy Harry would have picked somebody like Meghan just because she's so, counter to what is going to make for a successful, happy life in the British royal family. I don't see a lot to, give me a lot of assurance that Harry has a lot of joy in his life these days. He does come across as a bit preachy, a bit speaking from above. That to me just doesn't tend to reflect a lot of happiness. There's also just a little bit of the, protest too much side of it. We've always got to hear about their love story. We've always got to see them clinging onto each other's hands in public. I've been married for 16 years. Like, you don't have to put on much of a show of affection at this point.
I know what you mean.
They're just, it's there or it's not. And, I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I would imagine, I mean, I'm one of those who think that Meghan is either a narcissist or she has narcissistic tendencies. And, obviously anyone who wants to know more about that, just go to HG Tutor's YouTube channel. He's like the umbrella guy of the Meghan Markle stuff. What umbrella guy is to Amber Heard, right? But I have read some books about them. I did read Finding Freedom, even though I know a lot of that was BS, but I wanted to read their perspective. But then I also read Tom Bower's book, and I actually thought that his book was very fair because he did say some nice things about Meghan. Like, it wasn't just a takedown book. Like, there are times when he would quote people who were saying favorable things about her, and his attitude was a lot more neutral than I expected. But he did talk about how there were sources close to Meghan's ex-husband, Trevor Engelson, who has not gone on the record about her. Bless him for that. Seems like he's a good guy. But some friends of his who went on the record with Tom or told Tom Bower that what he said about her was that her private self, and I know this is true about all of us to a degree, but her private self was very different from her public self, and that she was not sweet in private, but that she was very demanding, that she had a temper, that she yelled a lot and nagged a lot and was generally very unpleasant. I'm paraphrasing. So, and again, we're getting this secondhand and his ex-husband and all of that, right? But I think that there's so many stories now that have come out about bullying, palace staff having to leave because she's such a bully. And a lot that I've read about her, and it seems like she is a very narcissistic personality. And it seems like she does not tolerate attitudes or actions that she doesn't agree with. And so one of the things that Tom Bower said in his book, he talked to a lot of people who were around her and Harry, people who were at a wedding they attended, friends of Harry's and stuff. And they said that when she met Harry's friends, she was like constantly criticizing them for their politically incorrect statements, and that she basically came across as some kind of a woke policeman or something, right? And so to me, all of that doesn't bode well. No.
Well, I remember the stories about she made Harry quit hunting, and then his grandfather Philip had given him his collection of old antique collectors' hunting rifles, and that Meghan made him sell them because she I guess was vegan at the time, although she baked him a chicken to get I don't know, I can't keep track with all this stuff, but. Yeah, I think it's important to bear in mind that one of the reasons why it is so hard to cast judgment on people in this very definitive way is that, yeah, often even very narcissistic, toxic, damaging people have some really good qualities to them.